Thank you for doing this interview. How are you going?
Yeah, mate, I'm good, bro. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. I used to watch you when I was younger with PK in the audience.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing you out there in the crowd, and there's a lot of long-term fans, and I think that's a good thing that we've retained, people throughout the years.
Yeah. So I was wondering, how did you start in this wrestling community? Because it's definitely before me, and I'm curious.
I moved over to Australia from New Zealand in 2000.
Yeah.
And just stumbled across like a wrestling message board way back in the early days of the internet. And there was a show in Southport at the PCYC. It was WCWA, which was World Championship Wrestling Australia, which was the forerunner of the company known now as IPW. And I went along and watched and got to know Cruz and his father Hawk. Yeah. And they said, "Oh, hey, man, would you like to, come along and train?" And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds really cool," because I was into wrestling since I was like a kid. I was, 14 years old, and I was hooked on pro wrestling. And that's kind of how I initially got in.
So, who was your favourite when you were starting?
In IPW?
Yeah.
I really liked Cruz.
Yeah.
I liked Sweetass, and I was originally going to be his manager, but he had to go overseas short notice. And so I ended up managing on my debut. Started as a manager, and I managed Hawk in the main event, and I managed Cruz that night as well, which was just on the fly. I just sort of turned up, and Sweetass wasn't going to be there, and they said, "Well, why don't you go out with Cruz?" And we were together for years and years. Probably 5 years.
So what was the experience? You finally went down the ramp. You had fans. You had lights all around you. What was the first thought?
It was very surreal because, you watch. It's like watching a TV show, and you might be watching, Home and Away or whatever the TV show might be, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the show. Like you're not on the outside. You're in. It's like being inside the TV, and all of a sudden you're within the realms of where the action's happening, and you think, well, heck, I could get hurt here if I'm not, careful, or if someone takes a swing or whatever. And of course, I did actually get hit with a hammer in the main event, Hawk versus Thor, who was this big Viking dude, and it wasn't too vicious, but he hit me in the back of the neck with this big sort of solid hammer. That was my start of in IPW.
Yeah, because I knew you as a commentator, but I did stumble on a picture of you bleeding in the ring. I was like, oh, he's a wrestler. So how did you prepare for matches you knew you were going to get really hurt in?
I kind of got a bit lucky. I was training, took bumps and learned how to run the ropes and back bumps, front bumps, and I was getting into managing. In fact, my first match was a rumble, much like the Santa Rumble, but it was called the Hardcore Rumble. And what that was same as a Royal Rumble, but everyone gets to bring a weapon. And so my weapon of choice was a steel chair.
Classic.
And and I just sort of asked, can I be in this match? And asked Hawk, and he said, yeah, why not? Me and you we'll get in there together, and we'll work as a team, which. Worked out pretty well for us because we were the last two left in the ring.
Yeah. So how did you get into commentating? You got your partner PK. How did that all happen?
Me commentary, I'd taken a break. So after about, I want to say 2009, I took a break from wrestling. And about a year later I came back and Hawk said, oh, hey, would you like to do commentary?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, sure. I'm happy to do anything in wrestling, and I've done it all pretty much now. I've done, wrestling, obviously, managing, ring crew. I've done refereeing. I was a referee for a couple of years. So I've pretty much run the gamut of everything, up to commissioner. So, I've had a pretty lucky career as far as, sampling every sort of aspect of wrestling along the line, from the bottom to the top.
Yeah. Because when I was younger, I used to always boo the un-Australians, and you always with them, and you always entertained us. I remember yelling Aussie Aussie at you a few times with my mates.
Yeah, man. Yeah. like being the heel and the foreign adversary to the Australian legends like Jackaroo. It was a fun thing to be in, and to go out there and be a bit of a jerk is a real hoot to me. I think that's where I kind of came into my own as far as what I really kind of enjoyed. And growing up watching wrestling, I had a bit of a thing for the heels. I liked Hulk Hogan, but I really liked people like Greg the Hammer Valentine and the Honky Tonk Man, and just the bad dudes of wrestling. Bad News Brown. I thought, man, these guys are getting away with whatever they want. They can do and say with impunity. So that's what I really wanted to do, was play a heel, and that was pretty much it for that. Yeah.
And one of my highlights that I went down to Narang to watch, you wrestled RIP. So, yeah, that shocked me. I really enjoyed that match. What was your thoughts like knowing you'll get to that match?
Yeah, it was a match that like I'd fired Toa, and then RIP wanted to bring Toa back, and I was like, well, no. I'm the commissioner. I've got some say here, even though he's the technically the owner. And we had a difference of opinion, and so I, he challenged me to a match, and I said, all right, let's do this. So, and I had a plan, and it backfired, obviously, and Toa's back, and I guess everyone's happy. But it was because I hadn't wrestled for a long time. Like I think 2010 was the last time I was on a Junkyard Bash. So it had been 15 years since I'd been in the actual ring. So I did a little bit of training, but most of it was just me hamming it up and just going back to what I knew, which was like hardcore. I'd been hardcore champion before, so I kind of knew that I could hang with RIP and as far as that. And I had a bit of a plan and brought out some friends, but history proved that RIP was the winner on the day.
Yeah. So looking back, you had a pretty bloody ending of a match, and you walked past us, and I was just thinking, what were you thinking? Like when you got backstage after that match, were you thankful you did that match, or did you regret it, or would you do it again?
Yeah, no regrets at all. It wasn't a planned thing to get busted open heavily, and I was bleeding, and just I just wanted to get backstage and just clean up, basically, and make sure I didn't need stitches, and luckily I didn't. I'd do it again. It's one of those things. You get into wrestling, and you always get that itch. You always sort of think, oh man, what if I could do this, or how would I do that? I'm a little bit limited. I'm getting on in age. I'm nearly 27, so you don't want to sort of jeopardise, especially if you've got a full-time job outside of wrestling, and you've got to be mindful that if you get injured in wrestling and you can't do your real job, you're not making money, and so you've kind of got to be careful. And at my age, I don't mind doing the one-off thing like that. I wouldn't want to wrestle full-time. It's a much harder on your body than a lot of people give it credit for. Wrestling's a tough sport. It's I still have not injuries, but I still get a sore neck from time to time, and it's a bit clicky. I turn my head and it's creaking and carrying on. So I'd do it again.
Yeah. And what's your day-to-day life as a commentator? Because PK said he would walk around talking to people what they want to hear.
Yeah, I tend to wing it. I think being impromptu and just saying what's on your mind at the time. Like I don't sit down and think of funny things to say. If something pops into my head when there's action happening in the ring, and I think it's going to be funny, or if the crowd doesn't get it, then maybe the other commentator will. And if I can crack up the other commentator, well, I'm happy. So I don't really plan a lot. I don't, I'll have a quick chat with people, but generally, like the wrestling, I've been doing it that long. I kind of know, the ins and outs, and we'll just do what we normally do.
And last question, as a veteran, do you have anyone that we need to keep an eye on?
There's so many. Chief. I think High Chief is, like very early on in his career, and he's doing like super well. He's over with the crowd, and I think Chief. But there's just so many solid wrestlers out there that are like at the top of their game, and that's Toa and Jesse Love and Rip Riley. Man, he's just a whole other kettle of fish. I'm glad I don't wrestle anymore full time because of guys like him. And Scorn is just the juggernaut of IPW. So
Yes.
as far as up and comers, I would say High Chief. I think he's sort of definitely like a rocket ship at the moment, and the sky's the limit for him. And super likable character and a good guy. So, probably High Chief.
Thank you for taking your time out of your busy day managing everybody. Have a good day and have a good show.
Cheers, brother. Appreciate it.